$50,000, something like that from the people. And then there were citizens in Bamiyan that all lined up to pray for Japan. I mean, these things have happened. And also from Southeast Asia, a lot of offer for help and collaboration. And I think if Japan is learning one thing right now, interdependence is something of a reality that we talked about but never really experienced. And we rely on a lot of assistance and support from the developing countries as much as they have relied on. So in that sense, we should really take this experience that we're going through as something positive for the future.
Bådnar, Svenska Dagbladet, Sweden, photographer. About Libya, Hugo Chavez offered to mediate in the conflict at an early stage. I think a lot of bloodshed could have been avoided if he would have been allowed to do so. What is your opinion about
that particular one of, I don't know. I'm afraid it's one country I've never been to. And I have not had much dealings with whatever the governance issue as well as on the oil issue. But I was really surprised to note that there were workers who went all the way from Bangladesh to Libya to work. There was a lot of non-Libyan workers there, which would put them in a very complicated situation too. And I think with the oil income that the country has, I think, and then some people wanting to go to Europe too, it's a very complicated migration, refugee mix of a situation that is going on. But I hope it will settle down. I'm afraid I have no direct dealing with it.
The last question of this day will go to
I don't know if I'll find it.
It's almost the last question.
Joël Legendre from French RTL from France, Paris, Radio Television. Just two questions, but more comments from you. I often wonder why you didn't become Prime Minister of this country, actually, because you often wondered why your observations and experiences were not to be put into the national scene here. What, in this regard, do you consider when you look at the evacuees and displaced persons that we have now in the Tohoku region, in this part of Japan? What do you think is being done? Is good or bad? And what should be better done? This is my first question. Second question is, how do you view the arrival of the Japanese military forces in Djibouti? In some way, you are aiming to peace and rescue, and in other fields, people are coming here to assume more military responsibilities in this part of the world. So, could you comment on what you see with Djibouti? Okay.
I have been to Djibouti in the days when they received a lot of refugees at one time. That's a long time ago. But right now, I think what you were asking about Djibouti is really, Japan sent some the military there. It's really to try to do something about the maritime piracy issue in the whole area that I think is causing a lot of trouble for the Japanese maritime transport work and so on. So if that is going to be something of use, I don't have any objection to that. But it's a very, very small country, that I do know. And I think the maritime situation will be settled only if there is a lot better control of what was the country? Somalia itself. And there's some talk about sending some part of Somalia, which used to be under the Italians, may be brought into order, but I don't think so yet. And so the Somali situation has to be settled in order to get the maritime situation. And I would hope very much that there will be, I don't know about Japan because there's hardly any experience of being really inside Somalia up to now. But just doing it by maritime forces, I don't think will settle the situation. And I think with Djibouti to be providing the port for, there was only the French Navy in those days that I went there, but there might be a very, very big burden for Djibouti to be able to manage that out of their ports for the whole ocean trafficking or lack of control of the maritime system going along. And I have no answer, but I was rather surprised to know that the Japanese self-defense forces did get there, but that is to help for the maritime policing.
And the inner Japanese evacuees, as you know,
From where?
Tohoku region.
Oh, Tohoku region. I think the problem was a very serious problem to start with. But administered, if I were asked to be Prime Minister, I would never accept such a thing. So that was one. But you see, it's an administrative structure complication is one thing I think. Because there's a national decision-making structure coming from ministries. There is also the prefecture, and within the prefecture there are all sorts of lines of authority from the villages and so on. The only way to manage this kind of thing is really for the national to come up, understand this crisscrossing, but still it has to come from the national, understanding the realities of the provinces. And there are 3 provinces. I should hope that they can come in and settle this much more quickly. I think for emergency and bad situation, speed is always a very important thing. And I am afraid I would like to see speedier reaction and more decisive management as a private citizen. Yes.
Thank you very much. Now the very last question, and after this question, I will close today's session. Thank you.
Well, it's not a question. If you allow me very briefly, my name is Wahid Abdel Nasser. I'm the ambassador of Egypt, and it's a thank you note for Mrs. Ogata. I meant to be the last speaker just to express our deep thanks and appreciation to Egypt for Mrs. Ogata, for JICA and all the staff, Mr. Imada and others, and for Japanese government. Madam Ogata had been kind in elaborating about support for Egypt, but maybe my colleague has touched about some aspects of that, but I want to say very clearly that Japanese support and cooperation with Egypt has been free of any political conditionality, because in one of the questions there was the question about conditionality. Throughout the time since it started more than 50 years ago, Japanese support and development cooperation with Egypt has been free of any political conditionality. It has been based on friendship and cooperation for the sake of development of the people, particularly the broad base of the Egyptian population, the average Egyptian citizens. And we have been very grateful and appreciative for that. And that's what reason that explains the pleasant surprise that Mrs. Ogata referred to about Egypt requesting from Japan support for electoral process as well as planning for the 5-year planning, because of this accumulated trust and confidence in the mutual relationship. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this since you are already a spouse member of this club, I can't offer you an honorary membership. That's custom in our club. But we, of course, have something else prepared for you. Please come to the club.